through a fraud scheme that involved fraudulent contracting, false documents, false bids, and it involved outside contractors and employees, board members, and employees of the Prichard Water Board. Approximately $960,000 of that stolen money was illegally laundered, including through a business owned and operated by two of the defendants. The indictment alleges that the criminal scheme involved the creation of a fictitious business by several of the defendants and the creation of false invoices to justify payments that were not in furtherance of the Prichard Water Board business or the business of the board. In addition, there are charges related to taxes that were not filed and not paid in connection with the money that was taken. The charges are, like I said, there are 32 charges. It alleges several different conspiracies and several objects of the conspiracies, including wire fraud, mail fraud, bank fraud, money laundering, tax fraud. In addition to stealing the money, allegedly, and laundering the proceeds of it, the defendants are alleged to have attempted to destroy evidence and obscure the collection of evidence and the ability of law enforcement to uncover what happened. Fortunately, our law enforcement partners were able to spend a lot of time. They were able to concentrate on this effort. It has taken us some time to do this investigation, but it was careful, it was thorough, it was complete. As I said, they were able to document at least $2.4 million worth of fraud that was taken from the Prichard Water Board. Obviously, we are concerned not just with the criminal aspects, not just with the tax aspects. We are concerned for the members of the community here. The people of Prichard and of every community here have a right to honest services from their elected officials, from their public officials, and from people who are operating for their benefit. Thanks to the excellent work by our law enforcement partners at the FBI, at IRS, the Postal Inspection Service, the Mobile County Sheriff's Office helped with this. The Mobile County District Attorney's Office has been an invaluable resource for us. I know there are also state charges that are parallel to this, but that are separate. But we have had a phenomenal working relationship and cooperation and collaboration with all of these partners. And I just want to thank them publicly for the effort and the professionalism that they dedicated to this investigation and to holding these people accountable. 2 individuals were arrested this morning. That we had 3 others turn themselves in. They have all turned themselves in. The indictment has been unsealed. You all will have access to that. It's my understanding that the initial appearances of the defendants will occur at 2 o'clock this afternoon in federal court, where they will appear in front of a judge and the criminal proceedings will begin. We don't have a schedule for the trial or anything like that at this point. The other thing I want to note that in addition to the actual criminal charges, one of the important aspects of a case like this is our forfeiture. And we are seeking forfeiture of $2.4 million, as well as some real property, 3 homes that were involved in the fraudulent scheme, as well as that were purchased using proceeds of the fraudulent scheme. So we intend to try and get as much of this money back as possible for the taxpayers. That's part of why we bring cases like this, is to try and recover as much as we can. So that is going to be a parallel integrated piece of what we do, not just with the indictment and the criminal charges that have been brought, but also in the event of a conviction, we intend to seek the forfeiture of as much money of that as we can get back. So I just want to say thanks to all of our partner agencies for doing that. We have representatives here from IRS and from FBI. So I will now turn it over to Demetrius from IRS.
Good morning. My name is Demetrius Hardiman, Special Agent in Charge, IRS Criminal Investigation, Atlanta Field Office. Thank you to U.S. Attorney Sean Costello for the opportunity to speak about IRS Criminal Investigation's collaborative role in bringing about the indictment of the individuals involved in this case. The actions of these officials and contractors in misusing taxpayer funds can erode the public's trust in government. The residents of Prichard, Alabama have an expectation that their hard-earned money will be used for their community's benefit. Unfortunately, the individuals indicted today thought differently and abused their positions for personal greed. IRS Criminal Investigation special agents use their financial expertise in following the money to help identify the various tax and other financial charges against the defendants. Through the collaborative efforts between IRS Criminal Investigation, the FBI, United States Postal Inspection Service, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and local authorities, these individuals will be held accountable for failing to uphold their duties as honest public stewards and as business owners. Thank you.
Good morning, Parker Steele with the FBI here in Mobile. I want to take this opportunity and thank you for being here, and I want to thank the United States Attorney's Office for their aggressive prosecution of this case. There was a tremendous amount of work that went in from the case agent team, from the prosecutors here to make this type of event happen. Especially I want to thank our partners. The FBI is continually working and cooperating with our federal, state, and local partners to combat this type of criminal activity, and we will continue to do so in the future. As it's been said, this is a top priority with the Bureau right now in order to combat government employees who steal, and also with their co-conspirators who engage in this type of activity to defraud the public and from positions of trust. So again, I just want to thank our partners for all their efforts in this and the tremendous work by our case team. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Mark. I'll take questions to the extent I can answer them.
You mentioned the state case,
Right.
which I guess is ongoing, and we've known about that for a while. Just from looking over this, I mean, that appears to just have been the tip of the iceberg.
I think that's fair to say, yeah. Obviously, we have been working hand in glove with the investigators on the state side. They have different charges, and our investigations, while they have been related, have been separate, obviously. But yeah, it's my understanding that the state charges are largely related to an alleged credit card scheme, and the indictment that the grand jury returned here is involving much different conduct and really some different schemes.
You mentioned that this is what was documented. Is it believed that more could have been stolen?
We don't have evidence of that right now, but in terms of what we calculate for purposes of the allegations in the indictment, we take a conservative approach of what we know we can prove and what has been documented. To the extent there is additional fraud that we can document, we would certainly update the charges to reflect that.
And could you explain why it's taken 3 years to bring these indictments?
Sure. This, as I said, has been a careful, thorough investigation. As with any fraud investigation, there's a lot of documents. In this particular case, there have been a number of collections of information. A lot of that is bank records. A lot of that is other evidence. It's outlined in the indictment, but you will see that there were a bunch of communications that are alleged between the co-conspirators. And so getting all of that evidence, documenting, tracing the money, the way that IRS, the Postal Inspection Service, and the FBI do these kind of investigations, they collect the evidence, they do interviews, and by and large that takes time. We needed to be sure that we understood the full scope of the crime that was alleged here, so that we did not overlook anything, and we also had to make sure that we were careful in terms of being able to prove that if and when we get to a jury. So we take a lot of time to be sure we have it all documented and that we can prove what we have alleged. But as I mentioned, there have been aspects of this case that have occurred that have been sealed and have not been public. As I said, 2 people have already pleaded guilty to charges in connection with this, but those have not been made public. So We have been continuing to work that investigation. It's just not been in the public realm.
But it's public now, those two?
It's my understanding that that those two are now unsealed.
And the $2.4 million you're alleging, is that against all of these defendants, or is it varying amounts?
No, it's varying amounts as to each defendant. The $2.4 million, or as I said, it's just shy, and the actual number is in the indictment, but it's $2.4 million and close to $2.5 million. That is the overall loss that is alleged, and that is for the entire conspiracy. But the way that liability works in these criminal charges, we allege the specific amount that each defendant is criminally responsible for, and that's different for each one.
And can you talk about the penalties they face? And I know that under the guidelines, that also will depend on what the loss amount ends up being, but just give us a range.
Right. So the main conspiracy charge is a 30-year potential penalty under the statute. It's the potential fine is $1 million or twice what the loss was. So that is, in this case, potentially close to $5 million fine. The other charges range from 30 years to 20 years, down to 5 years and 3 years. But the largest part of it, the highest potential statutory penalty that would be on the table would be a maximum of 30 years.
And do you have an idea, and I know this isn't calculated until later, but do you have an idea roughly what the guidelines would be?
No, I'm not going to speculate as to what that might be.
Can you explain why there is an uncharged board member co-conspirator?
At this point, no, I'm not going to comment on the charging decisions and sort of what's behind the charging theories at this point.
Is this an ongoing investigation and that there could be future indictments?
I will say that all of our investigations are ongoing to some degree. Just because a grand jury returns an indictment does not mean that we quit investigating or that we stop receiving information.
Who was arrested and who turned themselves in?
Let's see. I think Ms. Heister-Hagen can help us with that. I know I've got it up here.
Is the uncharged board member still living?
I'm not going to comment on people we haven't charged. But yeah, we'll get you the names of who was arrested and who turned themselves in. I know I have it up here, but I got too many pieces of paper.
and the two who have pleaded guilty already?
Mm-hmm.
Who are they?
They are. Let me see, because I'm not sure they are in here. I will get that to you because Ms. Heister-Hagen has that as well.
And there were a couple of people who were charged in the state case
Mhm.
but not named in the federal case.
No, I'm not going to comment on people we have not charged. All right, so let's see. Mr. Larry Knight was arrested, and Dewan Lamar was arrested. And the surrenders this morning, they turned themselves into the FBI, was Nia Bradley, Randy Burden, and Steve Jones.
And then you said there are two that have pleaded guilty. Do you have that?
Yeah, they are. Let's see. I'm sure Casey can tell us. Right, Ayanna Payton and Stephanie Hunn have entered guilty pleas and are pending sentencing.
The properties that could be seized, are those going to be outlined in like a civil forfeiture action?
I don't know whether the specific properties are outlined in the indictment. I believe they are, yes. Yeah, 1561 Colgan Street, and then 1462 Avon Circle, and 1073 Cloverdale Drive. So those are set out in the indictment. All right, if there's nothing else, we appreciate it. Thank y'all.
Thank you.